We are on Moncrief Road West, where JSO says they are investigating a triple homicide that happened right over here at Callaway Cove Apartments. Now, this is where the JSO gang unit says they heard gunshots, and when they went over to investigate, they ended up finding 2 men and 1 woman dead inside an apartment. Right before that, they saw a vehicle leaving this complex, ended up chasing it, and 3 miles down the road, were able to stop it, and a few people were detained and several firearms were also taken. Now, we're still working to find out more information about that. So far, JSO says that they are not sure if it's gang related, but that it could be drug related. We are going to be updating you on Good Morning Jacksonville with live hits every half hour to tell you the latest about what we know, so be sure to tune in there. But for now, I'm Renata DiGregorio, First Coast News, on your side.
It happened late last night at the Callaway Cove Apartments on Moncrief Road West. Jacksonville police told us early this morning multiple people were detained after a car chase, and now we've learned they're all teenagers. News 4 Jax reporter Janice Harris is live at the apartments. And Janice, do we know anything about the people who were shot?
We're still waiting to get confirmed information about those 3 people that were found dead. But in the meantime, we've been told by multiple sources there are 5 suspects, and they are very young. For several hours, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office investigators have been walking in and around this apartment building labeled E at Callaway Cove. A photo sent in by a viewer shows the ongoing investigation of a shooting that left 3 people dead. According to JSO, it began in the early morning hours. Gang Squad was in the area of Callaway Cove and heard shots fired. Shortly after, they saw a vehicle leaving those apartments. Crime and safety expert Ken Jefferson says Gang Squad's presence will prove critical to the case.
The Gang Squad happened to be in the area already investigating, obviously, gang activity, and very fortunate to hear the gunshots when they went off. Otherwise, you'd have to have a response time for units to get there, and these suspects that fled the scene would have been long gone.
According to JSO, the driver did not stop. Instead, a police chase began. JSO found out it was a stolen vehicle from Clay County. After the driver continued to flee police, the chase was stopped with a pit maneuver that stopped the car, and several people were taken into police custody. According to multiple sources, there are, quote, 5 suspects, some of them minors. One of them is 18-year-old Keon Lester, charged with criminal conspiracy and a life or first-degree felony crime. Back at Callaway Cove, an additional canvass led police to 3 bodies in Building E. Millennial Companies owns Callaway Cove Apartments. I asked them if the 3 people dead lived there. They would not confirm or deny, but they did tell me in part, quote, "We are saddened by the violence and empathize with those affected by the incident. Our property management and leadership teams are deeply engaged in responding to this event and cooperating with law enforcement officials as they continue their investigation. For those who may need help coping during this difficult time, we have made counselors available for residents and staff." This as police continue to investigate how a late night at these apartments led to 3 people dead. And the big question that police will have to figure out is why the shooting happened in the first place. They're asking you, the public, if you know anything about this incident, to please contact police immediately. Reporting live from Moncrief and Cleveland, Janice Harris, Channel 4, the local station.
The triple murder that occurred at 4229 Moncrief Road. That shooting occurred on Monday evening. That was Monday, February 8th, 2021. members of our gang unit were out there doing a deployment in the area. They actually had somebody stopped on a traffic stop when they heard gunfire coming from the apartment complex. Those detectives immediately cut that person loose from the traffic stop, started running towards, or actually driving towards, the gunfire that they heard. When they get in the area of the gunfire, they see a dark-colored vehicle fleeing the scene and driving erratically. The officers attempted to do a traffic stop on the vehicle, and the driver continued to flee. We've later learned that the driver of that vehicle was a 14-year-old female. Let me repeat that. The driver of the getaway vehicle in a murder is a 14-year-old female. She takes police on a 3-mile pursuit, or approximately 3 miles. They attempt to pit the car a couple of times, which is a precision intervention technique, and they're unable to do that. They are later able to pit the vehicle at, near the 3-mile mark, and officers converge on the vehicle and take in the occupants. There were 4 occupants that they took into custody at that point, and they all started making statements. We didn't shoot those people, we didn't shoot those people. The officers, realizing they have the right vehicle, converge back on the scene. The original scene patrol is already there, looking for the apartment where they think the gunshot occurred in. The gang unit, they do a canvass of the area, talk with residents, and they come up to someone that's able to help them locate the apartment. Inside, they find the 3 victims that we talked about earlier in our releases. In this case, the vehicle that I mentioned earlier that was fleeing the scene was stolen out of Clay County. So, I mean, when you talk about the criminal nature of this whole planned event, you know, it's with a stolen car from another county and comes into Jacksonville and then plans this robbery, this murder. So the 4 individuals from the vehicle have each been charged with a second-degree murder as well as a conspiracy to commit robbery. We have conducted a search warrant on the vehicle that was had the suspects in it, as well as the apartment. There were 3 firearms located in this suspect vehicle. One of them was disassembled, and we believe that, and logically believe that that would be the murder weapon. It looks like they were starting to break it down to maybe throw it away in pieces as they made their getaway. Fortunately, the officers converged on them so fast that we were able to get all of the evidence from that scene or from that situation. But there were 3 firearms in the vehicle. The search warrant on the residence revealed that there were over 100 Oxycontin pills, a large ball of a white powder that we're still running tests on and should know more later, and a large amount of cash. So, as I mentioned, this is not a random act of violence. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the root is beyond the robbery and the murder that occurred, but it's not a random act of violence. Once again, if the public has any information in regards to this crime or any others, you can call 630-0500, or you can email us at jsocrimetips@jacksheriff.org, or you can call Crime Stoppers, 1-866-845-TIPS. The suspects in this case is Elena Sears, 14 years old, Owen Chico Cosme, 17, Keyshawn Glover, 17, and Keon Lester, 18 years old. So with that, I'll take any questions.
So I was hearing possibly that there's a 5th suspect. Can you comment on that? Do you have him arrested yet? So
we're continuing to investigate the case. Obviously, you know, we're still trying to figure out some of the details and those kinds of things. So if there is an additional suspect, we're obviously taking a look at that, and we'll see where the evidence leads us.
And the drugs that were found, those were in the victim's residence?
Those were in the victim's apartment, yes.
What do you think the relationship was between the victims and the suspects?
We're taking a look at that. Obviously, for for the suspects to know that there's items inside of the apartment that they valued or wanted to take or you know, rob from them. I mean, there's some relationship. We're just trying to figure that out now. It's still early in the investigation, but we'll run that down.
Do you know if any of these do you know if they've been linked to any other robberies or murders if the car came from Clay that was used here in Jacksonville?
So we've provided you with their criminal history. It's sad because every one of these kids, and I agree with you, kids have prior felony arrest. You know, you're not 14 or 17 and start out your criminal career with robbery and murder. You know, you typically start off at lower level crimes. So, I mean, obviously from their criminal history, you can tell they've had brushes with the law before. And it's just sad when you see this information that comes up. It's shocking and appalling when you see that you've got kids, 14, 17, 18 years old, out committing crimes like this in our city.
Do we know of any relation between the victims?
I don't have that information, but obviously it's a part of the investigation, and so at this point in time, you know, we're still looking at that, and so we're not entirely done with that yet.
And that includes the ages of those victims as well?
Yes. Well, we know our victims. We've identified our victims. We're just, like I said, we worked to put this together really fast in regards to, obviously, it came together really fast with the great work from our gang unit. And so yesterday, most of yesterday was spent in regards to the suspect interviews and collecting the evidence and really running that down. I mean, with this many suspects and this many interviews and, you know, obtaining the search warrant for the apartment and the cars, it really consumed the day. And so, I mean, some of the peripheral things will continue to build on those.
And earlier you said robbery and murder, so signs are pointing to robbery at this point?
So they have been charged with second-degree murder and conspiracy to commit robbery. So,
Will they be charged as adults?
well, that's up to the state, but I mean, obviously this is a heinous crime. It's, you know, that's the state's decision and for the juveniles if they're adjudicated and charged that way. But you know, it's certainly it's a violent crime. I mean, it's sad to say that is an adult crime, but I mean that decision will be made later.
And also hearing from some sources that a 15-year-old boy inside of the vehicle was the shooter. Can you comment on that?
I did not list any 15-year-old boys in that case. I have a 14-year-old female, 2 17-year-olds, and an 18-year-old. So.
Okay. Can you confirm if anyone, the 3 people who died, 2 Hispanic males, 1 Hispanic woman, if any of them were employees of the state attorney's office?
I cannot confirm that.
And you changed the name of an apartment complex, but it's still a trouble spot. What are the efforts to try to make sure we don't have to show up at this place again?
Well, I know the property owners recently took possession of the complex. They've put a lot of money into the complex. They've even reached out to provide some services to the residents since this incident. But it really speaks for, you know, community engagement, community involvement, and getting to the root of the issues, whether it's that complex or another one. I mean, I know we just were talking about this area earlier this week in regards to some issues that happened out there. So, I mean, we always go back to community involvement, and we need that information. We need that help to root out what the issues are. I mean, obviously, from what we found, this is a drug house, but we find out about it after the fact.
Can you say why the 3 victims were there?
I can't speak to that point in regards to exactly what their purpose was.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.